Hey, can you really afford not to wear earplugs? Hi, Tony here, welcome to the cave, and this week I'm going to be looking at ear protection. Now this is an often and hotly debated topic, but there is scientific evidence and testing to show that prolonged exposure to noise that you get from a motorcycle helmet can irreversibly damage your hearing. Now, just to put some facts around it, in a working environment, if you're exposed to sounds above 85 decibels, then you must be provided with ear defenders. That's certainly an EU regulation that sits here in the UK, but obviously in the social world there's no rules. You'll be surprised what kind of levels of sound you can be exposed to. So I did a little bit of research about some of the sound levels and actually how safe it is to be exposed to those sound levels for some time. So at 85 decibels, which is that trigger point for ear protection in the workplace, that's kind of roughly the sound of a food blender. Now the safe exposure without ear protection to a sound at 85 decibels is 8 hours. So you can happily work away with your blender for 8 hours without ear protection, no problem. Now as you step those levels up, obviously that safe exposure comes down. So for example, if you move to 95 decibels, which is the kind of sound an average lawnmower will make, you've got 1 hour safe exposure without ear protection. So if we jump up to 100 decibels, which is about the same kind of sound level as a handheld drill, you've only got 15 minutes of exposure without ear protection before you start damaging your ears. So what does this mean when you put it in context of riding a motorcycle? Well, around 110 decibels if you're traveling at 50 miles an hour. Now there's obviously some variance in that. It depends on your helmet, the aerodynamics, whether you've got a screen on the bike and all sorts of bits and pieces, but that does seem to be an average industry figure that I can find online. And interestingly, at 110 decibels your exposure without ear protection should be no more than 112 seconds. So if you're riding without ear protection at 50 miles an hour or over, this is where you should be wearing earplugs to protect your ears. One of the conditions that can be caused by prolonged exposure to sounds at these kinds of levels is tinnitus, and if you're unlucky enough to suffer from tinnitus, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're not, this will give you an idea of what it's like to suffer with it. You'll get these varying types of noises that will be constant in your ears, so you'll hear what else is going on, but you've constantly got this background noise, and it can be quite debilitating. It can lead to real problems, and tinnitus, despite any spam emails you might get in your inbox, is not reversible. It's permanent. You can kind of treat it in terms of not making it any worse, but you can't reverse these effects. So what options have you got when it comes to ear protection? Well, there's varying types. You've got the kind of very simple, cheap PU foam plugs. Now these can be pretty effective. These ones offer an attenuation of, they say, 39 decibels, so they'll reduce the sound that your ears are receiving by 39 decibels, and that's enough to take you down into that safe level. Now there's some pros and cons with all types of earplugs. The pros with these are they're cheap. You know, you can buy, if I look online, I can pick up about 200 pairs of these for about £22 seems to be the average. So they're cheap. And they're universal fit. You just squidge them up, roll them in your ears, and away you go. Now the cons for these is firstly they block your ears, so they do block out a lot of sound, which is great, but there's no filtering, so you're kind of blocking out all sounds, and when you're riding a bike that's not always great. You do want to hear sirens, you do want to hear cars approaching, you want to hear the engine noise, and that's just a loss of clarity at certain frequencies. So that's one of the drawbacks for these. And also these really should be a one-shot deal. You should be putting these in your ears, using them, and then discarding them. So if you're commuting, for example, you ride into work, you ride back from work, ideally you should be putting a set in on the way in, and you should be putting a different set in on the way out. And the reason for that is because that foam does break down. It's not designed to be used over a prolonged period of time. Earwax, actually, if you get earwax on that, that can affect these, make these go harder, so they're less effective. And also just the hygiene factor. If you get these dirty and introduce them into your ears, then you could potentially get in bacteria in your ear canal. That can create ear infections, and if anybody's had an ear infection, and I've had a couple, it's probably one of the most painful things you can ever go through. So not advised. And these are not really designed to be washed. So they're cheap, universal fit, but the sound quality and clarity isn't great, and you should only be using these once. The next option is to go for something like a silicone universal fit earplug. I've been using these from Earpiece. They're silicone, nice fit, and you've got separate filters in here, so you can change the attenuation on these. But obviously there's pros and cons to these as well. The pros is they're still pretty affordable. You're looking roughly at around the £20 mark for a set of those, and they still have a universal fit, so they're a one size fits all, kind of. And you also get some clarity of sound, so the filters will help with that. It'll bring the overall noise levels down to a decibel level that's safe for your ears, but you still get to hear outside noise and everything else. Now the cons are there is some limitation to that attenuation, again, and this can be caused by fit, and that's the second issue, is fit. Some of these will fit you, some of them they won't. You might find, for example, that it fits in one ear but it doesn't fit in the other ear, and that's the problem that I've got. Now the third option, and the option that I'm going to be looking at in this video, are custom molded earplugs. Again, pros and cons. Well, the pros are they are a bespoke fit because they're molded to your ears. They fit perfectly. If you use a company that produces certified earplugs, then you get that guaranteed level of attenuation, so you know exactly what that's going to do. Cons obviously are the cost. They are more expensive, and that's one of the things that people start to reel back on, and they don't last forever. The average lifespan of these is 8 years, but really after 4 or 5 years you should be getting your ears checked again, because they do change, and you may find that the original moldings that you had done don't fit. So I started to look around online to see what companies are out there making these earplugs, and that's where I came across Ultimate. I came across their stand at Motorcycle Live at the NEC, had a look around at their literature, had a look at what they were doing. I had a chat to Dave Marshall there about the pros and cons of these earplugs, and he suggested that I came in, had a set of molds made. He can take me through the process, so I went away and did that, and this is what happened. So I'm now in the inner sanctum here in Orpington in Kent, and I just thought while I'm here I'm going to take you through the process of getting these ear plugs manufactured. I think some people can feel a little bit anxious about having the mouldings taken and people digging around in their ears, so I'm just going to show you what that process is, why they do that, and show you that it's nothing to worry about. So let's get on with the moulding process.
Have you had impressions taken before?
No.
No. Have you had any surgery on your ears?
No.
Any recent ear infections?
No, not for a few
Anything
years.
about your ears that I need to know about before looking at them?
They might be hairy.
That's fine.
What potentially would there be
To prevent
you taking a mould? Yeah.
If you've got a big build-up of wax, that's mainly the biggest problem. Because if you've got a build-up of wax, we have to push the stop in to stop the material running down. If you've got a build-up of wax, the wax will be, the stop will be pushed down, and it could potentially perforate your eardrum, so it'd be dangerous for me to take the impression.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm with you.
Sit nice and still while we look in your ears.
Okay.
Yeah, that's nice and fine. So there's that one. Now I'm going to put a small foam stop, one in each ear,
Okay.
about halfway down the canal. All it does is stop the material running down and hitting the eardrum. Just sit nice and still while I push the stop in, try not to move or flinch. How's that feel, okay?
Perfect.
Keep your jaw nice and relaxed, and no talking till I take the impressions out.
Right, okay. So how long will this take to set?
About 5 minutes.
Okay. And what is the material made from?
It's the same material that the dentist uses.
Okay.
It's a medical silicone.
It's actually quite a pleasant feeling.
Right. Open your jaw, side to side, click. That's it. This one, how's that feel?
Nice. So once the mould is taken, you're left with this little impression, and this is what's going to form the cast or for the mould for the earpieces. You can see the stopper that was put in there with a string that runs through that, and then from here it's quite an involved process to get to the ear plug itself. You've got various options in terms of what you can put inside there, whether you want speakers or just the straightforward squishy ones, and we'll look at those in a little bit more detail later on. Also, once these have been cleaned up and the moulds are taken from them, these come back to you. So if you want to order in the future, you just send these back and they'll make another set from them, but you get to keep these original moulds. Now, one of the questions that crops up a lot is, so why are these moulded earplugs better than the foam ones that I've been using? And it's not just the case of the noise protection. Now, largely the benefits are fit, comfort and hygiene. Because it's moulded to your ear, it fits exactly. You can't push it too far in. You know it's going to give you that guaranteed attenuation because it fits so snugly into your ear. Now, the fact that these are moulded to your ears means that they're going to be incredibly comfortable, especially when you're wearing a helmet. You know that they're not going to come out, they're not going to work loose, they're just going to sit there. You're not going to get any pressure on your ears. They're going to be fantastic in that respect. And also the hygiene. These are made of medical grade silicone, they can be washed. The people that continually reuse the foam plugs, and I'm guessing people are going to comment down below and say, well, I do that all the time and it's not a problem, but you are running the risk of damaging or infecting your ear, which is a risk that I really don't want to take. Now, I opted for what is effectively the entry-level moulded earplugs that Ultimate do, which are the squidgies. These retail at £65. From the point you have your moulding taken, you're looking around about a 28-day turnaround. That's generally the maximum. Quite often they come in before that. You get a 1-year warranty on those, but once that 1-year warranty runs out, they are still serviceable. Now, I'm no mathematician, but I did sit down and do some calculations for those people that argue about the cost. So if you're looking at the foam PU plugs, now if they fit your ears, that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't use those, you shouldn't use the silicone ones, you have to use the custom moulded ones. Any earplug is going to be better than not having an earplug at all. But I found with the foam ones, just from a cost point of view, people say, yeah, they're much cheaper. So on average, if I took the average price that I could find for some PU ones was about £22 for 200 pairs. That works out at 11 pence per pair of earplugs. Now that's a big difference to the £65 that you'll pay for the squidgies. But if you're commuting 5 days a week, ideally you'd use a set in the morning, a set in the afternoon. So that's 22 pence a day, that's £1.10 a week. If you're commuting for 50 weeks of the year, which admittedly is quite high, but if you do that, that's £55 a year. If you extrapolate that over to the 4 years, which is the time when you should be looking at having your moulded earplugs reviewed, that's £220. So already you're at 3 times the cost of the moulded earplugs over that 4-year period. Now, if your earplugs don't have to change, and you can hold them out for their lifespan, which is about 8 years, that's going to cost you £440 in the foam earplugs. So over a longer period of time, this is where the custom moulded earplugs start to make more financial sense, and they also, I guess, make a sense from an environmental point of view, in that you've not got hundreds of foam earplugs that are just going into general waste and potentially not being recycled properly. So this is just part one of the video, because I've got to wait for the earplugs to come back to me from the manufacturers. So in this video I just wanted to talk about the reasons why you should be wearing earplugs, and what the process is for getting those mouldings made, and also looking at some of the options you've got in terms of the range of products, Part 2 will follow up when the earplugs arrive. I'll show you what they look like, I'll show you how they fit, and I'll get out on the bike and give them a proper test. Hopefully this video has been useful and has got you thinking. If you don't wear earplugs at all, I strongly recommend that you start to look at your options. Even if it is the simple foam PU ones, it's got to be better than nothing. Tinnitus is a serious complaint, it isn't reversible, and it's not much fun. As with all of my videos, there'll be links up in the top corner, there'll be links in the end credit. I'd like you to hit that like button, and I'd love you to hit the subscribe button, that would be fantastic. And all I need to say is thanks for watching, and until next time, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Yeah.